Support for You Bet Your Garden comes from Lehigh Valley Home and Garden Center. Everything for outdoor living. Locally grown flowers plus a 7,500 square foot showroom of patio furniture. Lehigh Valley Home and Garden Center in Allentown. More at lvhgc.com.
From the high-flying studios of Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA, it is time for a very important episode of Chemical-Free Horticultural Hijinks, You Bet Your Garden. I'm your host, Mike McGrath. I'm always telling you not to feed the birds because you want them to eat your bad bugs instead. But on today's show, we'll reveal a much more sinister problem that can occur when you innocently feed seed to your songbirds. Otherwise, it's a fabulous phone call show, cats and kittens. That's right. We will take that heaping helping of your telecommunicated questions, comments, tips, tricks, suggestions, and inherently innocent invitations. So keep your eyes and/or ears right here, true believers, because it's all coming up faster than you doing your part to avoid a really silent spring right after this.
The Burlington County Earth Fair featuring Mike McGrath at Historic Smithville is back. It's a full day of fun family activities held in and around an amazing mansion and very interesting gardens and grounds. You can even bring your own kayak because a river runs through it. Admission is free, and the fair runs from 11 to 5 on Sunday, June 26th, with Mike McGrath holding court at 1 in the afternoon. Historic Smithville Park is located at 803 Smithville Road in Mount Holly, New Jersey. For more information, call 609-642-3850 or search Historic Smithville Park in Mount Holly, New Jersey, or just show up.
You're listening to an encore presentation of You Bet Your Garden.
Welcome to a very special edition of You Bet Your Garden from the studios of the Univest Public Media Center in Bethlehem, PA. I am your host, Mike McGrath. Today, we have an incredibly important warning about what you may be innocently doing to your birds that could wipe out songbirds if people don't stop doing it. As Groucho would have said, it's a common thing. It's something you do every day. But when the duck comes down, that may be the last bird you'll see unless you stop doing this common thing, which we'll reveal at the end of the show. We're also going to take lots of your fabulous phone calls at 888-492-9444. Carol, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
Well, thank you for making it. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm just Ducky. All right. Thank you for asking. Ducky loves to be on the show. And where are you, Carol?
Sudbury, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. What can we do you for?
Well, I actually watch Gardener's World, the British show about gardening, in addition to listening to your podcast religiously. Right. And they've just gone crazy on talking about how, we shouldn't use peat in, anything really in our garden.
I understand, because they're worried about it being an exhausted resource and damage to the environment by harvesting peat. But except for the accents, what's the biggest difference between my show and theirs?
Oh, heavens. Well, the pictures. How about the pictures?
How about the fact that they're in England and I'm in the United States of America? And they are absolutely 110% correct in speaking to their European audience. Anybody who's seen Hound of the Baskervilles is very familiar with the peat bogs in England and Scotland and Ireland. And it was a tremendous resource, and it was over-harvested like mad. And yes, there was environmental problems caused by that. And yes, every responsible gardener in Europe knows not to use peat, to use one of the peat substitutes. But the world has shrunk so much, and we have so many listeners all around the world. that a lot of times I'll get called out on using peat to increase the acidity around azaleas and rhododendrons and blueberries and stuff like that. And the difference is all our peat comes from Canada, where they got more peat than they know what to do with this. This is an important topic to me. I have researched this relentlessly, and I am personally convinced that peat harvested from Canada is totally sustainable. It is replanted, so to speak. There is so much of it. And for me as a gardener, it is essential when I need to add something that acidifies the soil and also brings the natural antibiotic activity, especially in potting mixes. If most potting mixes in America are very heavy on peat, and that almost always prevents damping off disease when you have made the soil too wet for your baby plants. The peat will deny any disease to get started unless you're really bad. So it's not just a soil lightener. It's not just an acidifier. It is a natural plant antibiotic. Matter of fact, something I haven't said, which I wish I had said during my seed starting advice at the beginning of the season, is if you have a heavy hand with water and you always have some damping off problems, that's where the baby sprout rots right at the soil line. Cover, when you're ready, got your potting soil ready, cover it with an inch of peat. And it almost, no matter how ham-handed you are, it will keep those starts alive and healthy. I guess one of the issues is, because peat is a regional resource, so to speak, it would be counterproductive maybe to send Canadian peat over to the UK. Or maybe we could disguise it as like the Peace Corps or something. You got enough to eat. Here's peat that doesn't harm the environment. But you're absolutely right, and I'm absolutely right. It's almost like invasive plants. In some cases, the plant in question is native and does well there. In another place, it's like, how can you recommend this thing? It tore my house down.
Yeah.
So, and you don't have to use peat if you don't want. Coir, C-O-I-R, from shredded coconut husks, lightens the soil quite well. I find it difficult to keep wet, and it doesn't acidify, and it doesn't have the antibiotic activity. But if you're a skilled gardener, if you don't mind sulfur, you can use that to take the pH down for certain plants. So, but I love peat, but I don't buy it willy-nilly. I haven't actually bought a bale of actual peat in a long time. But it's essential for me in finding an organic potting mix.
Yeah. Well, I just put in 2 new raised beds, and I was trying to get the stuff to put inside, and everything has peat in it.
Well, wait a minute. You built a raised bed. You haven't filled them with anything yet?
No, I have. I've got Coast of Maine because, they're one of your sponsors, and I love them.
They're a great company.
And I like seaweed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but most of their stuff, they have compost and peat, and,
well, see, again, here, peat is a renewable resource. Whereby, again, in Great Britain, there are gardeners who would chase you down the street with torches and pitchforks for using it while they're trying to restore this devastated environment.
Right.
And it's weird for it to be okay here, but not okay across the pond. But as I start, and I've researched this almost more than anything else, it is just the physical reality of it's not a problem here, and it's a terrible problem there.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel much better because I was worried.
Do you think old hippies like Coast of Maine would put something in their potting mix that wasn't like beyond organic?
Yeah. No, I mean, I knew it was organic. I just didn't want to be contributing to climate change. We're in the middle of a heat wave in June right now.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's why now we see what the world is like at 6 a.m. when we get up to work in the garden and get inside by 10. All right. I hope I have reassured you somewhat. Do your own research. Make your own choices. Okay?
No,
but for
thank you
lightening
so
the
much,
soil, there's nothing better than perlite. And there's no question about that is mined sustainably.
Yes.
Okay?
Great. All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Good luck to
care.
you. Thanks for the question. It's important that I explain that a couple times a year.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, they saw it first in Southeast PA, and it's spreading further every day. It's doing our crops and trees a lot of harm. It's an insect species that's not native, reproducing at a very high rate of speed, and folks, that's cause for some alarm. Now, once you dig what I have dug, you'll be hip to this invasive bug, and friend, you'll want to help to stop its spread. And when you see that little critter gonna take a swing like a home run hitter and smash that spotted lanternfly dead. Die, 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 spotted lanternfly. When you see me coming, you'll know your end is nigh. I got a fly swatter, I'm gonna chase you all the way back to Asia. Die, 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 spotted lanternfly. In the fall, find the eggs on a wall tree trunk and scrape them off into an alcohol dunk, and surely that will cause them to expire. When the nymphs hatch from the eggs in spring, wrap your trees with a sticky tape ring, but save the birds by covering it with chicken wire. Now the tree of heaven is our preferred host, yeah, that's the tree it likes the most. So if you got one in your yard, chop it down. Don't transport firewood, brush, or debris, cause they'll hide in there and you'll never see them. Hitch a ride with you to the very next town. Die, 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 spotted lanternfly. When you see me coming, you'll know your end is nigh. I got a fly swatter, I'm gonna chase you all the way back to Asia. Die, 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 spotted lanternfly. When you see me coming, you'll know your end is nigh. I got a fly swatter, I'm gonna chase you all the way back to Asia. Die, 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 spotted lanternfly. The die, 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 spotted lanternfly. Yeah. When you see me coming, you'll know the reason why. I got a fly swatter, I'm gonna chase you all the way back to Asia. Die, 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 spotted lanternfly. The die, 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 spotted lanternfly.
Support for You Bet Your Garden is provided by the Espoma Company, offering a complete selection of natural organic plant foods and potting soils. More information about Espoma and the Espoma Natural Gardening Community can be found at espoma.com.
You've been listening to an encore presentation of You Bet Your Garden.
Support for You Bet Your Garden on WLVR comes from Fidelity Bank. What would you do with your home's equity? Fidelity Bank offers opportunities to educate, consolidate, or renovate. 7 Lehigh Valley locations and online at bank@fidelity.com.
You're listening to an encore presentation of You Bet Your Garden.
Welcome back to another thrilling episode of You Bet Your Garden from the studios of Lehigh Valley Public Media in beautiful Bethlehem, PA. I'm your host, beautiful Mike McGrath, and we have a critically important question of the week that's going to apply to a great percentage of you. It's about killing your songbirds. Are you doing this accidentally? Are you making the birds that visit your feeders sick? It's really important that you change your ways if you do. We'll tell you all about it after a couple more of your fascinating phone calls at 888-492-9444. Lisa, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
I'm just ducky. Thanks for asking, Lisa. Now, I have to admit, Lisa and I were talking for a second before she came on the air. We do that with everyone. One of two questions. One is, what was your first car? For Lisa, I asked, what did you have for breakfast? Lisa, your answer?
Scrapple.
Oh, my goodness. And that's when I said you had to be in the greater Philadelphia area, because I think even vegetarians secretly sneak in some scrapple, cut it super thin, and fry it to a crisp. Oh,
It's a thing of beauty.
yeah, it really is. And you are in the greater Philadelphia area. Did you say you were in Harleysville?
Harleysville. Yep, I'm from Harleysville.
Know that very well. All right, what can we do for Lisa in Harleysville other than present her with a pound of pure sausage? That's kind of a contradiction.
I like that.
Kind of a contradiction in term, pure sausage. All right,
I like it. I like it. I'll take it.
What can we do you for?
So I have some lilacs that are very old. When my parents bought this property back in 1965, they were already as tall as they currently are, which is, I'd have to guess, about like at least 15 feet.
Good.
And they run down the entire length of the property. So they're beautiful. They provide lots of privacy, lots of beauty. They're just great. And I would absolutely hate to lose them. And on the roadside, I'm having some erosion issues. And
you sent an email quite a while ago, and you included photos of this line of lilacs. And I'm sure we can retrieve them and show them as we're speaking right now. Now, I'm going to tell you my interpretation of those pictures, that the lilacs on the inside, that is closest to your house, furthest than the road, they looked really good. Your concern was on the roadside, where the road had eroded, the soil had eroded enough that you could see some of the roots. And you were concerned, perhaps correctly, that this was only going to get worse rather than better. And the township had already denied you permission to put up a buffer of some kind because everything was already too close to the road. Is that correct?
Correct. They really didn't like the idea of a retaining wall because, again, they felt it was too close to the road. They didn't see that it was an immediate hazard for drivers that are going past, and then they were also concerned if somebody hit it, who would pay for it. So,
right.
But I feel like I need to do something.
Right, because those of us with very old houses know all too well the township owns, I think, depending on where you live, it's 25 or 35 feet from the center line. My poor next door neighbors do not. Yeah, my poor next door neighbors do not own a large portion of their porch. I mean, all these places were built to be close to the road because then you could theoretically get out in the wintertime and everything like that. I looked at the pictures. I couldn't even tell what you were concerned about until I looked at that final shot from the roadside. And, I can understand the township that, all this stuff has to be permitted. And there was a fabric of some kind you were interested in?
Actually, it was something, I think it was called EnviroLock, which was kind of neat. It's almost like, for lack of a more technical term, dirt bags in a way that have some sort of fabric.
Hey, lady, that's Mr. Dirtbag to you, okay?
There's a whole bunch of dirt bags in a row. But, so these bags, you'd essentially pile them up, and then the theory is to be able to do some planting of some roots that are plants that will really take hold in there and help to stop the erosion.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I can see the township turning thumbs down on that, too. I heard your concern through the emails, and when I looked again at the side by the road, I could see why you were concerned. One thing I want to lead off with is I don't think they're in any danger at all. Go through any woodland that has ups and downs, and you'll see all of the roots of a giant tree totally open to the wild. And believe it or not, that tree is healthier and has a better chance of not falling down than a tree that's been mulched or protected in any way. I have a lilac. I don't find them to be shallow rooted. But here's one weird idea that just occurred to me. NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Were you to feed them gently, though, not with crazy numbers, a phosphorus high fertilizer, that would encourage better root growth, as would a little bit of potassium. Not nitrogen. They don't need that. We want the growth to be directed towards healthier, happier, bigger roots. I know that's not a direct approach, but I think it might be the final thing that helps them. And then I forget if I emailed you back or not. It was a crazy time. But I thought about something I have seen and even done. Well, when I was a park ranger, that was my first job out of college in Pennypack Park in Philadelphia. After lunch, all morning long, we had school kids coming through so we could run our trained skunk that had been descented up and down the seats they were on. And that was a good way to clear the room. In the afternoon, we built erosion barriers. And we didn't use any tools or any objects from outside the forest. We would find a good-looking, long, healthy piece of wood, branch off a tree. We'd drive that into the ground, and then we do the same for the length of whatever it is we were trying to keep from eroding further. And then inside this line of natural spikes, we would lay a couple of other branches down. And instead of losing your soil, what happens is it accumulates by those other branches laying down. It's not obvious to the township, who I hope are not watching this show or listening. And I don't think it's nothing to be permitted. You don't need a permit to do this. You're not building anything. You're just reusing your dead wood or the dead wood from the park down the road or whatever. But we built these all summer long that year, and they were amazingly effective, and they looked good. They just looked natural. You don't have these bags of dirt too close to the road. And I think it's a great answer, and it's not going to upset the authorities.
I like the natural idea of it too, and I was also thinking stone, and not tiny stone, not boulders, but something that would because it's actually eroding down almost to rock under there.
Okay.
And being an old home, I think at one point in time, there at various points there was stone walls, and not that I'm seeing stone wall, I'm seeing more natural rock, but yeah, I should see if I could get some of what you're saying in there, if I can stake something in. I like that, and build it up. And
if you build the erosion barrier carefully enough, that will stop the dirt. And then the dirt will slowly build up. And once it's about halfway up the barrier, don't be afraid to put some premium topsoil on top. And if you need to, maybe build it higher. I'm sure you're going to get the stakes in the ground. Just sharpen the bottoms.
Actually, hilarious in a way, because I had mentioned something else about holding up our something else on the property, and I said to my husband, "We'll just sit on the the porch and will just whittle the ends and,
Yeah.
and disappears. So I'm going to tell him that Mike is in favor of
Whitland.
resurrecting my idea about whittling.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, and again, I think it's
Love it.
going to look natural. It's not going to draw the attention of the gendarmes. And if you start laying brick out there, you're going to jail.
I like it. Along with the phosphorus and the potassium, are you an advocate of, in this particular situation, of mycorrhiza?
Yes, actually, mycorrhiza are naturally occurring soil organisms that, in many cases, attach themselves to the roots of plants for a beneficial purpose. So, yeah, try to buy it from a place where it hasn't been sitting in the sun and it has a good expiration date on it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. You've helped me with so many things over the years. I always appreciate your advice.
Thank you.
Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. 'Little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug. One little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug. One little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug. One little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug.
Eight 492-9444. Michelle, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Hi, Mike. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Michelle. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I am just Ducky. Thanks for asking. Ducky's proud to be back again after a little vacation. Where is Michelle?
I'm outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Well, where?
Natrona Heights.
Which heights?
Natrona. It's a little bit north of the city.
Oh, okay. North of Pittsburgh. All right. Okay. What can we do you for?
Well, I have got a couple of carpenter bees living above the my back door.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk out onto a porch, so they are kind of they're I don't want them to be there, but I want to avoid killing them if I can.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was hoping that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I peeked into the hole the other day. I was hoping they had finished their cycle for the summer and that they moved out and I could plug the holes and then paint the wood. But I can actually see bees in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should know more about the life cycle. But if you look online at a good university extension website or call your local extension service, they'll be able to tell you when the babies are born and everything is done. I'm not really sure. They probably actually I have no idea whether they reuse those galleries or not. What you can do now is go to a hardware store or a home center and get some solid blocks of cheap, soft pine, untreated pine, and use a drill with a 5/8 inch bit to drill starter holes into the block of pine, just in like a 1/2 inch, and hang these.
Okay.
Do you have trees or anything near this area?
I don't have any trees in the backyard. I have trees in the front yard. So nothing close by, but I'm just thinking, I wouldn't want to put it on a fence, right?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. I mean, if the fence is unpainted wood, they're going to go for it anyway. But put up a whole bunch of these nesting blocks. And then as, if you really want, you can wait till they're out pollinating But if you can find out when the babies are born, it would be nice to do this afterwards. But get the blocks up now. And
Okay.
if it's safe, that is, the nest is empty while they're out gathering pollen, then you would immediately put up staple up some metal screening so they can't get back in the original hole, and then spray that whole thing with almond oil. Don't buy it.
Okay.
Don't buy it in like a health food store. Go to a massage therapist supply house or buy it online. They sell it by the gallon because that's the carrier oil that massage therapists use.
Okay.
And if you just stain, what is it, redwood or cedar? The wood.
Actually, yeah, it's just pine. It's pine that wasn't treated for outside use.
Gotcha.
When somebody replaced the door. So
Yeah,
that's what they're in.
In cowboy architecture, I know all about it.
Right.
Yeah, so you can try just staining the wood with almond oil. I mean, you got a gallon of it. You put it on with a paintbrush and keep the old hole, boarded up, so to speak. But if you put up enough of these nesting boxes in the right kind of place, you should have them nesting in there so you get their fabulous pollination and they don't eat your house. And by the way, they are very slow to do any kind of structural damage. So and they won't bother you if you don't bother them. So, it's not urgent that you take care of this, but it is good that you take care of it. So get the wood blocks up, stain it with almond oil, and really that should be all you need to do.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
I'll give it a try.
All right, good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Well, it's time for me to take a little break and remind everybody out there that this is the season of picking and that string beans, as well as zucchini and other summer squash, taste best when they are picked very small. If you can see them, you can eat them. And picking early encourages the plants to keep producing. But don't go inspecting your harvest to be just yet, because we'll be right back. You're listening to You Bet Your Garden from the studios of Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA.
Support for You Bet Your Garden is provided by the Espoma Company, offering a complete selection of natural organic plant foods and potting soils. More information about Espoma and the Espoma Natural Gardening Community can be found at espoma.com.
This is 91.3 FM, WLVR Bethlehem, WLVR.org.
The Burlington County Earth Fair, featuring Mike McGrath at historic Smithville, is back. It's a full day of fun family activities held in and around an amazing mansion and very interesting gardens and grounds. You can even bring your own kayak because a river runs through it. Admission is free, and the fair runs from 11 to 5 on Sunday, June 26th, with Mike McGrath holding court at 1 in the afternoon. Historic Smithville Park is located at 803 Smithville Road in Mount Holly, New Jersey. For more information, call 609-642-3850 or search Historic Smithville Park in Mount Holly, New Jersey, or just show up.
You're listening to an encore presentation of You Bet Your Garden.
Welcome back to another thrilling episode of You Bet Your Garden from the studios of Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA. I am your host, Mike McGrath, and we are in the stretch now, cats and kittens. In just a little bit, we will convey vitally important information to you about the do's and don'ts of bird feeding. You do not want to be responsible for the silent spring that Rachel Carson warned us about many years ago. But before that, a couple more of your fabulous phone calls at 888-492-9444. Gail, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I am just Ducky, Gail. Thank you for asking. Ducky is glad to be free of his mask and in the post-COVID world, at least for a little bit of time? Can we just get a couple of months
Definitely.
to catch our breath before we go back underwater again? How are you doing, Gail?
I'm doing pretty fine. It's a nice day here and looking forward to getting out after work.
Very good. Where is here for you?
I'm in Lake Ann, Michigan today.
Okay. And what part of Michigan is that?
That is the tip of the pinky of the mitten of Lower Michigan.
Okay.
So if you look at the Lower Michigan as a mitten, we're in the pinky.
Oh, okay. Isn't there a name for people in Lower Michigan? Don't you have a nickname of some weird sort?
No, that's Upper Michigan. They're the Yoopers.
They're the
in
Yoopers,
the UP,
and you're the Downers.
Right.
All right, let's change the topic. What can we do you for?
Well, I had a question after listening to one of your shows a couple of weeks ago, and I've heard you say many times not to use grass clippings in our compost because of the possible effects of residual herbicides. And my husband and I have been trying for several years, to keep grass under some trees, keep it growing. And for the last few years, we've resorted to weed and feed to try to help it out, but it hasn't been successful. So now we're changing gears, and we're giving up on the grass. We're going to put in a native shade garden. But do we need to still worry about any residual herbicide in the soil affecting the new plantings? And if so, is there a way to minimize that?
Boy, I wish you had called before you tried the weed and feed. You know, as much as I dislike these garden chemicals in general, the problem with grass under a tree, of course, is the tree. Not only the shade it throws,
right,
but the intense competition for nutrients and water from the tree's roots. So, you know, you're kind of going against nature when you try to do that.
Yeah, that's what we found.
Yeah. How big is the circle of death around the tree?
Oh, it's actually between two trees, and I would say that it's probably about 20 feet by 10 feet. So it's a fairly large area.
Okay. What I would do, first of all, is I would mulch the area with compost. Of course, that's what I'm going to do. Is,
okay.
You know, when a plane crashed down the street, get the compost. So I would mulch the area with compost. You'll like the look of it, the nice blackness.
Okay.
And what I would do is I would continue your thought of shade-loving perennials, but let's plant them in containers the first year or two.
Oh, okay.
And you avoid that soil. And in the meantime, the only way of getting residual herbicide out is through watering. Now, when herbicides were old school and they kind of went away on their own after 6 months or a year, that was easier to do. These residual ones, I mean, they get paid to hang out there. But the more water in that area, the better. And I wouldn't try to grow anything in it right away. But you can use the space creatively. You know, put out a couple of pieces of statuary there. You know, the little boy peeing on the plants is always in good taste. and some other stuff. And in terms of organic regulations, 3 months should 3 months. Boy, I wish it was only 3 months. 3 years, and it's safe to plant things there that are designated organic. So 2 years, and you can call what's growing there transitional. That's if you were growing for market. But I would do the containers, you know, for a couple of years. Who knows? Maybe you'll like it.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Hopefully we can get through all the tree roots.
Yes. Well, that's another thing about the containers. You really don't need to plant in the ground. Matter of fact, you might want to make it a true raised bed when you finally get around to planting in it. And the deeper the raised bed, the less you have to worry about stuff that may be a foot down.
Okay, very great.
All right.
Sounds awesome. We'll give that a try.
Send us a picture of the little boy.
Thank you very much.
All right. You take care.
Okay, I will. I will definitely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye. And come up with a
Bye-bye.
better name for the lower part of Michigan.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm not going to share the downer
Yeah.
name at this point in time. I think people would be too upset with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, you take care. Have
Thanks,
a good
Mike.
season. Bye-bye. All right. As promised, it is time for the question of the week, which is our question to you. Are you killing your songbirds with kindness? Years ago, I was a guest speaker at an entomologist conference when an audience member asked a question that I'm sure many of us had previously pondered. What good are mosquitoes? What purpose do they serve? My first thought was, like many predators and parasites, they eliminate the weakest members of a species and thus increase the overall health of the herd. But I did not win the big money on Jeopardy that day, as the researcher's answer went in a very different direction. Without mosquitoes, he calmly replied, the vast majority of songbirds would become extinct. Take away the prey, and the predator must also fall. Talk about being hit in the face with a condensed custard cream pie of reality. And then I thought, oh, dragonflies too. They're the prime controller of mosquito numbers. So much so that one of their common names is the mosquito hawk. Now, that exchange led to a lot of articles about natural mosquito control, a big part of which was making sure that local birds had plenty of shelter and fresh water, with nesting boxes provided for the most carnivorous bird families. That tied nicely into my seemingly one-man crusade against feeding birds in the summertime. Ever since the magazine that I edited in the 90s, Organic Gardening, had run a lengthy article on birds versus bugs, I had become convinced that bird feeders were counterproductive to this cause. The simplest argument goes something like this. If you artificially feed your birds in the winter, they won't bother chasing down their natural prey, which is big fat moths for larger carnivores, gnats, mosquitoes, no-see-ums, and such for the swifter, smaller ones. The more bird feeders you hang and fill, the worse the damage to your crop that season, because your best insect eaters are busy chowing down at the sunflower, bar, and bill. And one of the things that worried me most about that equation was that it could be twisted around and cited by agricultural chemical criminals as evidence that natural controls don't work. I presented this argument many times in the pages of Organic Gardening magazine, the frequent but erroneous statement, because of climate change, there isn't enough food in the wild for them now. The only people I could manage to convince somewhat were little old ladies who had watched Mary Poppins 100 or so too many times and loved to spend their days in the park feeding stale chunks of bread to the birdies. Bad enough to feed them at all, I explained, but stale white bread contains less nutrition than the paper bag the little old ladies carried the bread around in. But such easy pickings will always attract dumb animals like pigeons, mice, rats, and people who refuse to become vaccinated. And so the birds will fill up on these empty calories and essentially starve to death with full bellies. I also ranted against bird feeders because their spillage would attract mice, rats, voles, evil squirrels, and raccoons, maybe even that vegan couple next door. Oh, and the Humane Society recently chipped in by warning that if fed by humans, baby birds would lose their instinct to find food in the wild, food that is amazingly abundant in the spring and summer. But there is this ancient and unique human trait that allows people to ignore several levels of reality if the topic involves something they really want to do. But then a kind of tragic miracle occurred. A secondary argument emerged from researchers that feeders had the potential to become disease vectors. Seed that got wet became moldy, harboring God knows what kinds of nasty organisms. The birds were crowded into an unnaturally small space when they were feeding, which is a surefire way to spread disease quickly. And then there's the poop factor, or TPF, when wet, moldy seeds are topped with lots of bird poop. Looking back on it, it's hard to imagine disease not making the special guest appearance it has in these feeders. And the name of that special guest is Salmonellosis, a member of the dread Salmonella family that is responsible for so many grocery store recalls, sicknesses, and yes, even death. With birds, the symptoms are even more horrifying. From the Pacific Northwest in Canada across to New Jersey and affecting every state in between, homeowners are horrified to find dead and diseased birds in and around their feeders. Some of the birds are blind in both eyes, with one eye protruding out of its socket. Some display troubling neurological symptoms, falling over with eyes that are swollen shut and crusty. Some have protruding eyes, and some are just plain blind. The disease seems to affect most, if not all, varieties of songbirds. So do your part. Wearing gloves, take down your feeders, clean them well, soak all parts with plain white vinegar, and then store them where birds can't get at them. Then wash your hands thoroughly. Same with any bird baths you have out. Lots of bird poop going into that water. What's the alternative? As you go forward, select and install plants that provide lots of food and shelter for the birds, so that you can continue watching them safely. Well, that sure was some interesting advice on how to save our precious avian insect eaters now, wasn't it? Luckily for those of you who wish to read this information over in detail, the question of the week appears in print at the Gardens Alive website. Just click the link for the question of the week at our website, which is still and will forever be youbetyourgarden.org. Gardens Alive supports the You Bet Your Garden question of the week, and you'll always find the latest question of the week at the Gardens Alive website. Yikes, my producer is now threatening to fill my bird feeders if I don't get out of this studio. Whew, we must be out of time. But you can call us anytime at 888-492-9444, or send us your email, you're tired, you're poor, you're wretched refuse teeming towards our garden shore at YBYG@WLVT.org. Please include your location. You'll find all of our contact information, plus answers to your garden questions, audio of this show, video of this show, audio and video of recent shows, and links to our internationally renowned podcast. Oi, what do you want? Eggs with our beer? It's all at our website, youbetyourgarden.org. You Bet Your Garden is a half-hour public television show, an hour-long public radio show and podcast, all produced and delivered to you weekly by Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA. Our radio show is distributed by PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. You Bet Your Garden was created by Mike McGrath. Mike McGrath was created when he accidentally ate a chunk of red kryptonite, which he thought was a gummy bear. Ken Queter plays our theme song. Our Chief Content Officer is Yoni Greenbaum. Our Angel of the Airways is Christine Dempsey. Our engineer is always cheerful, Charlie Sarah. Our social media director is Amanda Norfleet. Check out her fine work at the You Bet Your Garden Facebook page. Our peerless princess of profound production is Tavia Minnick. Our audio editor is the lovely Jonas Bowen. Our video editor is Judicious Jake Boyer. Our harassed and harried director is Javier Diaz. The usual gang of idiots for this episode is composed of Eric Werner, Zach the Tack, Harry the Horse, Lou the Shoe, and Nicely. Hey, Nicely, how's it going? Nicely. Continued thanks to our fearless leader, CEO Tim Fallon, who either keeps allowing us to come in to take new material or still has no idea that we've been coming in here. I'm your host, Mike McGrath, and I'm tearing down the last of the spring peas, planting the first of my bush beans, harvesting potatoes and garlic and berries, and staying out of the sun so I can see you again next week.
Like this for some folks that came up from Corpus Christi. Now, some of y'all that still ain't never been down south. I'm gonna tell you about it one more time, so that you understand what we're talking about. Now, down there we got a plant. Looks something like a turnip green, except it ain't. Cause everybody calls it poke salad. That's poke salad. Now I used to know a girl lived down there. She'd go out in the evenings and pick her a little bit of it, carry it home and cook it for supper. And if she had any left over, she'd hang it out on the clothesline and dry it out and smoke it. But she did all right, y'all. I slept down in Louisiana, where the alligator grows so mean. There lived a girl that I swear to the world made the alligator look tame. Poke salad Annie, poke salad Annie. Everybody said it was a shame, cause her mama was a working on a chain gang. A mean, vicious woman. Every day for supper time, go down by the truck patch, pick her mess of poke salad, carry it home in a tow sack. Poke salad Annie, the gator got your granny. Chomp, chomp. Everybody said it was a shame, cause her mama was working on a chain gang. Richard, spiteful, straight razor-toed woman, granny. Everybody said it was a shame, 'cause her mama was working on a chicken. Sock a little poke salad to me. Know I need me a mess of it. Sock a little. Sock a little. Sock a little. Sock a little. Poke salad. Get a got your own granny. Poke salad and it. There you go.